I want to rise by lifting others. That's my personal purpose. Now, the company's purpose is to do a good work that supports God's work. And now this is where that emotional paycheck happens is when you ask them this question. Gary, do you see how doing a good work to support God's work will help you reach your personal purpose of rising by lifting others? And I don't know how many times, Brett, now I've asked that question and just seen tears flow from somebody's face and go, man, that's exactly why I'm here.
What's going on? This is Brett Snodgrass with another episode of the Iron Deep podcast. Got a good friend on the episode with me today, Mr. Gary Harper. What's going on, Gary?
Hey, Brett. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. I think this is at least the second, maybe the third time I've had you on previous podcasts throughout the years. So I know we did a podcast with you and your wife, Susan, a couple years ago. That was awesome. So thanks for having you back, man, and excited. So if you guys don't know Gary, again, I'll put something in the show notes about one of the previous episodes, but he's CEO of Sharper Business Solutions. He started 11 years as an executive in a Fortune 500 company, but now he has Sharper Business Solutions, and they just really help businesses with consulting processes, really just taking their business systems, hiring people, and really just, I know you guys have helped us so much with our business. You've helped many real estate investors around the nation. You're always traveling. You're always helping businesses and consulting. So just highly, highly recommended for you to be on the show today. And you've written a new book. This is your fifth book now, fourth or fifth, called Rise, the Business Framework. So super excited to have you. We're going to dig into that today as well. But I want to just start off with this. I was reading your book, Gary, Rise. It's a new business framework that you've created. And you started off kind of with the story just about Acres of Diamonds. There's a book out there called Acres of Diamonds. And I've heard about this particular story in a sermon before. And you kind of started off with an introduction into that. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about the story, number one, and why does that relate to Rise, this business framework?
So the Acres of Diamonds story was spoke about by a pastor, and he would use this story in order to get people in a very parable way, get people focused on the right things, and not chasing shiny objects, if you will, and not getting distracted. And a part of the story is it really goes through Al-Hafed's life, and Al-Hafed is somebody that who had a farm, and a Buddhist priest came and saw him, and he saw this rock that he had on his mantle, and on this what it was he thought was a rock was really a diamond. It was a very rare diamond, and he ends up understanding the value of it and what it means, and he ends up chasing after this diamond. He goes and scours the world looking for this diamond, and he uses his whole life savings, and he never finds more. In a state of despair, he unlifes himself and throws himself in a river, and his life becomes at an end. Somebody buys up his farm, and the same Buddhist priest comes by and sees him, and again notices this rare diamond and says, "Hey, was that Al's?" He's like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about. This isn't Al's diamond. This is my diamond." He's like, "Where'd you find it?" So I was watering my camel, and I found this rare rock with this rock, and then as I've cleaned it off and whatever, he discovered that it was a diamond. And he said, he's like, goes on to warn tell him the story, but he goes on to tell him that his backyard is filled with these diamonds. And it just kind of teaches us a lesson that a lot of times our riches, and that's not just wealth, our riches are in our own backyard.
Yeah.
And we fail life because we don't mine them properly. We don't take care of them properly. And the reason I tied it back into Rise is Rise, as it's a symbol that reminds us to focus on the right things. And I don't know if you noticed in my book, but my logo is actually right here behind me on my head. Oh, right here behind me on my head, and it's a diamond. That's the logo. And it's to remind us to focus on the right things. But even more importantly, how do we mine in our business for the right things? In a process map, if you've ever done a process map, if your listener's never done it, when you create a process map, there's different shapes of a process map. And the logo or the things that you put on the process map are different shapes. There's ovals, Ovals are the starts and the ends, and then there's the rectangle boxes, and that's the where we build the steps that are in the process that then will eventually create the procedures. But then there's a diamond in your process. And your diamond reminds us or tells us whether or not the process went the right way or went the wrong way. We decide it's a decision point.
Mm-hmm.
Did we go this way or do we go this way? And I always tell people that if you want to find the riches in your business, you have to mine for the diamonds in the process. And then you have to identify those diamonds and pull them out and make sure you track them daily.
Mm-hmm.
And those are called key process indicators. There are diamonds. And so I love the story of focusing on the right things, right? I love the story of reminding us that sometimes the diamonds in our own backyard, but in business, the diamonds are in your process.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times we go out and we learn from other people and we learn how they run their business and how they document their process. And we don't take the time to learn our own and document the process that's best for our business. You know how many times I've seen entrepreneurs go out and pay another successful entrepreneur to teach them how they did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've actually seen them be successful learning from somebody on how they
Mm-hmm.
did it until the process changes,
Mm-hmm.
until the economy changes, until the market shifts. And then now everybody has to sit back and wait for somebody else to create a successful process for them to go follow. I saw it in the last 2 years in real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where wholesale processes were breaking,
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
working.
Yeah. Yep. The
And
people.
people were like, what is working? What are they asking? What processes out there are working right now? And somebody's like, well, Novations works.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, oh, I'm going to go buy Eric Brewer's course. What are they buying? His process.
Yeah.
Right. But then the thing is they don't learn
Understand it. Yeah.
it themselves of how it applies to their own business. And sometimes it works in their market, sometimes it doesn't work. I've heard both sides. And so why is that the case? Because we don't mine our own process
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that it works properly. And then we don't track the metrics properly to make sure that the process is working every day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the story comes from. And it's just a subtle reminder of, let's work on the things that matter in our own backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can obviously take that a lot further than business. The first thing I think of is, I've started like Iron Deep, which is a men's ministry, or people that are in ministry feel like they have to go do something in the mission type of field, but they leave their own four walls at home behind. And so sometimes it goes way beyond business of, are you mining your organization at home, your process at home, and as well as business? Or sometimes, you see these other businesses. Oh man, that looks so cool. I want to do commercial properties. I want to, flip these big things. And then you leave your simple residential wholesaling business behind. And I've done that too, right? So I think it's just, are you mining? Are you taking care and a good steward of what you have right in front of you, what you provided? So love that story. I want to just talk about Rise, the business framework. As you know, I've had a business coach in my life. I've had a couple of them. You have actually been our business coach, with our organization. I've read a book, Scaling Up. That was one of the first business frameworks that I've read. We've done EOS. You brought us that as well. Rise business framework. I want to talk about, we're not going to talk about maybe some of the nuts and bolts. I know there's some similarities, obviously layover, but I want to talk about just the uniqueness. So a new business framework. How does this differentiate from some of the other things out there already?
Well, first of all, their Harvard Business Review said that businesses go through 5 stages of business. Okay. And so a lot of operating systems have focused on one or two of those stages. And so, like traction tends to focus on the earlier stages of business, where scaling up tends to focus on the later stages of business. And so, Rise is the bridge through each one of those phases. It's the 4 bridges that bridge those 5 phases. So resource is how we get from stage 1 to stage 2. Inspiration is how we inspire those resources to get out of stage 2 into stage 3. Systems is how we get out of stage 3 into stage 4. And expansion or engagement is how we expand out of stage 4 into stage 5. And stage 5 is business maturity. It's reaching your purpose. And so I wanted a lot of operating systems talk about the philosophy of those 5 stages or how we do these things, but they don't really dive deep into the tactical side of, it's one thing. A lot of operating systems is what, Rise is what and how. Like, how do we do these things?
Yeah.
And so I wanted that tactical. I mean, a lot of operating systems that talk about stage one, stage two, stage three, stage four, and stage five. Like, we all know them. But then how do we bridge those stages? And then I wanted an operating system that reduced complexity and vernacular. A lot of operating systems like to use fancy words,
Mm-hmm.
and their own terminology. EOS calls them rocks, and
Mm-hmm.
40X calls them wigs, and there's all this, proprietary terminology, and I get it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're trying to protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But what are we protecting at the end of the day? They're all the same thing. They're
Right.
90-day goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're just trying to call it something. So I wanted to reduce that complexity. And the other thing I wanted to reduce is as a business scales and grows, and they have to jump from one, like you said, go from one operating system to the next, like the vernacular complexity starts to get rough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then you got people that have these hodgepodges of like, they're running this meeting structure called this, and then they over here they call it this, and like they just have a messy organization based on complexity. And we all know that one thing that kills a company faster than anything is poor communication,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? I was asked one time if I was a business assassinator, how would I kill your business? And I was like, I would just take out the lines of communication.
Yeah.
Like, that's the easiest
Yeah.
way to shut
Just
the company.
confusion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And same thing in a marriage, same thing in a relationship. Like, if people don't talk, it's over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Disengagement's the first sign of like withdrawal and death. So
Mm-hmm.
like we need to keep those lines open and less complex. So that's the first thing. But I think the other thing is, I found a need in the world today. In 2020, the millennials took over and the book workforce. 52% of the workforce is now made up by millennials starting in 2020. And we have a lot more millennial leaders today. And a lot of these operating systems were built over 10 years ago. And so 2020 didn't just usher in COVID, it ushered in a different mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And even my generation looked at it and was like, what am I doing? Like,
Right.
I don't enjoy what I'm doing anymore. Right. Like, so it definitely brought in what I feel is called the emotional paycheck. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying you replace financial paychecks with the more emotional, pay people less and give them more emotional reward. But 67% of the people in a survey I saw said that the emotional paycheck was one of the main reasons why they left their employment.
Hmm.
And from 2021 to 2023 into 2024, we had an error called the Great Resignation. And that was millennials standing up and going, no, 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 no. I'm not going to live 30, 40 years of my life doing something I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do something I want to do. And they were like, that helps me fulfill my purpose, why I'm here, right? Like, we have a generation that's more focused on quality of life than we've seen in years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think 2020 kind of ushered not only them in, but also COVID brought that mindset as well. We saw baby boomers dropping like crazy to COVID, right? And it was in some degrees we saw our parents who did what they had to do for all these years, burning at both ends and just miserable, if you
Mm-hmm.
will.
Mm-hmm.
And they just millennials looked at it and go, "What? No,
Yeah, I'm not gonna
no,
do
no,
that.
no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna die to a virus one day and then look back at life's purpose and go, I didn't fulfill it because I didn't take a proactive approach in aligning with a business, a job that helped me fulfill me emotionally, financially, and physically, right? So like that's the next thing. That's it. The other thing is, why Rise is because we hear a lot about right people, right seats, and core processes, and all these different operating systems have the ideology down, and it's good. But then it's like, how? Like, how do we become tactical in measuring this? And we created what we call the 9 box system. And the 9 box system focuses on when we put somebody in a seat, we measure their heart, their head, their hands, their feet. It's a rhyme, Brett.
Mm.
The heart, the head, the hands, the feet. Tell me if you're in the right seat. And so heart is desire, right? We need to know people if they desire to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is behavior. This is where we use a program like predictive index to say, do you have the right behavioral traits to do this? And when we ask them, what is this? It's the
Mm-hmm.
process.
Right.
Here's the process you're going to do. Do you desire to do this process? Do you have the behavioral traits that are needed to do this process? Do you have the skills, the hands, the skills to do this process? And does this move you? Does it give you mobility? In other words, do you see yourself growing the seat or growing with the seat long term? And in the 9 box, with every 9 box, there's an evaluation of 2 categories, the bottom and the top and the side. And one, this side, is the potential of the person to be in the seat. And the bottom is the performance of the person to be in that seat. Right? And so what creates performance? The heart and the hands. Desire and skills. Man, that you can perform all day long if you desire it and you've been trained on how to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Brett, I brought in predictive index into this industry years ago, along with other assessment tools. And people keep looking at new hires and go, well, they don't have the right PI. I can't hire them. And they're like, they won't perform. I'm like, no, no, no. You can't say that. They will perform if they desire it and they have the training. The head and the feet, which is the PI, the head, the behavioral, and the feet, which is like, what's your working genius? What moves you? Those two measure the potential of you being in that seat and how long you'll be in that seat. But in no way, shape, or form measures whether or not you can perform the job. Because if anything, our parents proved to us for 40 plus years that you can perform and do what you have to do. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the emotional paycheck shows up in the potential of like, how long can you do it before you burn out?
Right. Yeah.
So depending on if you're a low potential, high performance, you're a workhorse. If you're that's what you are. If you're a low performance, high potential, then you're an idle genius. You're somebody that could do really well with this, but we don't know yet. And because the millennials make up a majority of the workforce, we don't have the ability to look at skills anymore. We can't look at 25-year-old resumes.
Right.
We got 2-year resumes, right? So
you don't even know. And they might have just been goofing off and just, bridging the gap between, them and their career.
So we have to measure potential with somebody with this skinny resume and then bring in the training and give them the skills. So that's where PI really comes in, is where you have 50 resumes with very skinny resumes, or 50, they're all skinny. So then we like, okay, what's the potential of this person? And then should I invest in their skills? Right? What I find is somebody doesn't have the potential, then it ends up killing the heart. And then performance fails. Right? So that's a 9 box for a right seat. And then we have the right people, because we don't want the right seat, people in the right seat, but the wrong people for organization. And the 2 categories that we measure there is vision and values. And we ask the question, do you align with my vision, Brett? Do you align with my purpose? Do you align with where I want to be in 5 years? Do you align with those things? And do I trust you with my values? I call it the double V effect, right? So if I trust you with my values and you align with my vision, then you're the right person for our organization. But we don't want to get that part wrong, because we can have right seat, wrong people, or we could have right people, wrong seat, and both are detrimental. Right seat, wrong people, kill our culture. Right people, wrong seat, kill our bottom line.
For sure. Yeah.
And they're both really hard to get rid of, by the way.
They are.
Because one is a lot of money, and the other one's mom.
Right. That is true. Can't fire mom.
Can't fire mom. She's the right person. She's not
Right.
making us the right kind of money, right?
Right.
So they're both really hard. And I think the 9 boxes give us that. And then the third 9 box is a process 9 box that we evaluate. Is this valuable to our customer, this process? And is it essential to our business? One's internal, one's external. And where this becomes important is if it's highly valuable and highly essential, then it's a core process. You heard it before, document your core processes. Well, how do you know what they are? They're high value and high essential. If they're not high value, but they're high essential, then automate them. If they're not high essential, but they're high value, outsource it. We always want to outsource and automate, but where businesses get hurt is when they outsource or automate core.
Yeah. Core process. Yeah.
We need the right people sitting in the right seat, sitting in core process.
For
We
sure.
outsource low essential or low value, or automate those things.
Mm-hmm.
Keep our costs low, right? Because it's not core to our company. Disney, I think of Disney, Brett, and if I want to go to Disney today, I don't need the Magic Band. I don't need the Wow Box they send me 30 days with all the confetti in it. I don't need any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I can literally go there, get a little card, or use my phone and walk in with my fingerprint
Mm-hmm.
because I have an annual pass. But they send the Wow Box because it's high value to the customer. It's just
Mm-hmm.
not essential to their business.
Mm-hmm.
They have somebody else that does that. They outsource it, right? Why?
Yeah.
To keep their costs low.
Right.
And then the last of the 9 boxes is the product 9 box, right? So then we evaluate, is this product scalable and is this product profitable? And here's the power of the 9 boxes. You overlay them and you get right people, right seat, high value, high central process that's highly scalable and highly profitable. We have an amazing opportunity.
For sure. No, I love it.
But then it's also dangerous, Brad, if we get right person, wrong seat, right process. Or what I see a lot of, Brett, and this is where this balance, harmony comes back in. We get right people, Brett, right seat, CEO, sitting in bad process.
Mm.
And it
That's probably
kills
where
your
I'm at.
could be, could be. But that kills our productivity, right? Like, are you booking your own travel?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because then where's that time better spent?
Right.
Better spent with your family, your
Right.
daughters, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when we start to get unbalanced.
Right. Yeah, when we're having to do that. That just reminds me of, just because I'm always thinking and thinking about, I'm the like the master delegator, so I probably try to delegate some of the core processes. But, one of the things was I live in Fort Wayne. I drive down to Indy, once a week, sometimes 2 times a week, but that's just a long drive for me. So I hired a driver, right? That's just something because it was a waste of my time to drive. I could have a better use of my time. That's just an example. I want to talk just a little bit this emotional paycheck, because this is just something that even as a CEO, as a leader, just trying to wrap my head around, again, measuring that, creating the environment for that, because again, money, revenue, profits, very easy to measure. Are we making money? Are we not making money? But to have the emotional paycheck is almost just mind-boggling. And it's coming around. I have some millennials on my team, and hey, I need to take a mental health day.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? I've never heard of that before. Like, what's a mental health day? Like, we joke around that like my dad would, he would like flabbergasted taking a mental health day, but that is around, and so. Can you talk to us a little bit about, as a business owner, creating some of the emotional paycheck for your employee? We know environment culture is big, but any other bite-sized tips? I know it's in your book as well, but how do we create the emotional paychecks for these employees?
Well, first of all, the emotional paycheck shows up in a lot of areas. It's not just like benefits, because what you're referring to is benefits, and that is an emotional paycheck, is making sure they get the right benefits,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's, a mental day or PTO or, whatever those days look like in your organization. But the first emotional paycheck is putting them in the right seat, because we talk about energy a lot, right? And emotional paychecks and things like that do come from energy and having the right energy and where they spend their time and where they spend their energy. And so the when we measure people based on predictive index, we're measuring whether or not they have to modify. And when we modify, it uses more energy and it drains our battery, right? The other assessment tool I like to use is Working Genius. It comes Patrick Lencioni. I just was with him 2 weeks ago in Oakland, California. It was with Ryan Pineda, and we played golf, and then we spent 4 hours with Patrick, and he actually asked for a copy of the Rise Business Framework. He asked me to sign it because he had read it. And then obviously I'm a big fan of his work, the five
Mm-hmm.
dysfunctional team and the 3 big questions for a frantic family. And like, he made an interesting statement. I don't know if you've heard this statement before, but he said he wrote the 3 big questions for a frantic family because he said, if I figured one day, if I ran my business the way I ran my family, I'd be bankrupt.
Yeah.
I wonder how many
True.
entrepreneurs could relate to that, right?
True.
Like we run a very successful business, but not so much of a successful family. And it's like the rise that framework, or that he created a family framework called the three big questions,
Mm,
right? And I think that was important. But anyway, this, his working genius assessment helps us measure um, God's gifts to us. So Ephesians 4 talks about what God's gifts are to us, right? Like what he gave us. And that's our working genius. That's where we're going to feel the most fulfilled in life, is when we're doing the things that utilize that gift. And
mm,
mine is galvanizing and discernment. Those are
mm,
my two gifts, right?
mm,
So when I live in a process, the question is how much of the processes of that day that I do in that job complement those two gifts, right? And that's what I say moves us. That's kind of what gets our feet going, right?
mm.
That's why I
Right.
call it the feet. So when I do that behavioral assessment along with that, motivation assessment or genius assessment, it really gives me a good perspective of whether or not this is going to be an emotional paycheck. Are they going to go home tired or fulfilled?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're going to spend less, you're going to have less mental, what are the day off called? It's a mental break day, or what's it
Mm-hmm.
called?
Mental
Yeah,
health day, mental break
mental
day.
health
Yeah.
day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you're going to give a lot less of those when
Mm-hmm.
people feel fulfilled in what
Right.
they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what do they need? They're saying my battery's low
Yeah.
mentally and I need a day to recharge.
For
That's
sure.
what they're saying.
Yeah.
And it's because we put them in the wrong seat,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Second thing is emotional paycheck is protecting their purpose. For years, Brett, we created mission statements and purpose statements that were centered around what? The
Us.
business. Yeah, us,
Yeah.
the
Or the
business.
business. Yeah. What we
This is
wanted.
what I want.
Yeah.
This is what I want in the person when I hire them in the seat. This is what I want to do in life. This is what the business wants to do. But millennials are done with that, honestly. And honestly, a lot of other generations are still done with it too,
Mm,
because they want to know whether or not this company's purpose is going to help them fulfill theirs.
for sure. Yeah.
And so in the Rise Business Framework, we actually asked three questions around discovering purpose. One, purpose comes from the past, the present, and the future. The past usually tells us what we love to do. The present tells us what gift we have that we've been given, maybe one of these working geniuses, that we feel the world could benefit from. And the future tells us what we want to be remembered for.
Mm,
When you take those three answers, you can take those three answers and then create a purpose statement from them. And I always encourage leaders to sit down and discover those three questions with their team members.
mm-hmm.
And here's where it gets really powerful. This is where the emotional paycheck really shows up. It's when you ask someone, say somebody asked me, Gary, what is your personal purpose? Right. And I sit down and I do these three questions and I walk away with this statement because I want to rise by lifting others.
Hmm.
That's my personal purpose. Now, the company's purpose is to do a good work that supports God's work. And now this is where that emotional paycheck happens, is when you ask them this question. Gary, do you see how doing a good work to support God's work will help you reach your personal purpose of rising by lifting others? And I don't know how many times, Brett, now I've asked that question and just seen tears flow from somebody's face
Mm, mm,
and go, man, that's exactly why I'm here.
mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm,
Sometimes the purpose, the job allows them to be at home with their kids and allows them to work from home. And so those benefit, now we get into benefits, right? The
mm-hmm.
third emotional paycheck, which are the benefits of the company. And there are 10 benefits that millennials want right now, Brett.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is they want to feel challenged.
Mm,
They want to feel like their work give them a reason to get up in the morning.
mm-hmm.
Second thing is they want to feel recognized, right? They want time that they give. They want to feel like it mattered and it was appreciated. Third is they want growth. They want to grow. They won't want to be stagnant. They
Mm-hmm.
want to feel that their career is evolving and they feel that things are moving.
For sure.
Number four is location. The location matters. I mean, COVID ushered in like work from home.
For sure. Yeah.
And I have a talent company right now, Brett, and we can't get people to come apply if it's not a work from home position in a lot of states. Right? So
Yeah.
that matters. Salary still matters as a benefit. Like they still want to know that they're being compensated at or above their counterparts in other companies.
Mm-hmm.
Hours matter. They want work-life balance. The days of like calling somebody at 10 o'clock at night and why didn't you answer your phone? It's gone, right? Like they want that balance.
Yeah.
Next is culture. They want to feel good about the office environment they're in. They want to know that it has a good vibe. They want to align with it. Next is the environment, the office space. So they have to go into an office. Is it comfortable, right? And is it efficient? They actually want efficiency in an office space. They don't want to feel like when they went in, they were not productive for 4 of their 8 hours
Mm-hmm.
because the office space calls them to be unproductive, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
They want industry. They want to know that their niche they work in is desirable, right? They don't want to work for somebody that's like, I don't want to tell anybody I work there.
Right. Yeah.
They want environment, they want industry, and then last, they want brand. They want to be able to brand associate. They want to be proud of the brand that they work for. And honestly, the more and more this world, brands are taking a very stern line right now. They're going, I stand for this. I don't stand for this. Why? Because the millennials are telling them if you don't stand for this or you stand against this, I won't work for you.
Mm.
I was with Patrick a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me about a very large organization, which I'll leave off this podcast as name. And this organization stands for Christianity. It stands for God. It closes on Sunday. It does all these things. And he was telling me how they may not stand for that in the future.
Mm. Mm.
And he was like, because the world is telling them that if you're going to get good employees, you're going to do this, you're going to have to stand for these other things. And I'm not willing to compromise the things I stand for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But some companies are. And so millennials are saying, like, I'm not going to work for you, if we don't have these things and what you stand for. And so those are emotional paychecks. Each one of those 10 things is an emotional paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And money's not the top motivator. Right. And so when we job post going forward, we need to include our personal purpose, our
Mm-hmm.
professional purpose. We need to include the job requirements. We need to tell them what behavioral traits, what process they would desire, what skills we're looking for, we're willing to train on, and what working genius that we're looking to complement that role with. Next, we need to give them the reasons why they should want us. Right?
Right.
These are 10 reasons why your job postings need to include location, they need to include culture, they need to include pay, they need to include all these things because they're the emotional paychecks for those people to decide whether or not they want you.
Mm.
I do a 3-step hiring process. The first step I do is I go, all right, what's the potential of every one of these people? Will they be setting, what's their heart, head, hands, and feet? Will they be in the right seat? That's first interview. So
Mm-hmm.
50 candidates, is this the right seat for you? Second interview is, are you the right people? Right? I'm telling them my values and my vision, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
evaluating whether or not they align with that,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not they affirm it. Third thing I do is then I go, all right, do you want me? Let me tell you about the position. Let me
Mm-hmm.
tell you about the benefits, emotionally, financially. Let me tell you these things, and then we make you an offer. That's the third interview.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not the first time I saw it because I saw it in the job posting, right? And in a world that's a red sea right now and unemployment's not as low as or not as high as it used to be, and people can be a little bit more selective, even still till today. We see it still. People are going to choose you based on those 10 things. Your purpose tells you what you stand for. Your values tells you what you stand for. They're going to attract or repulse based on those. But really, where they're going to make their decision is they're going to make their decision in the emotional paychecks. And here's the last thing I'll say on emotional. Where we don't give an emotional paycheck, Brett, we pay more. We pay more financially. We pay more and have to know all these benefits. We pay more in turnover. We pay more in lost productivity. Because here's the thing, we hire when people don't get an emotional paycheck, they're there because they have to be,
Right.
not because they want to be. And George Carlin said that most people work hard enough not to get fired and get paid just not to quit when they're have to employees.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
productivity goes. You put
Yeah.
the right person in the right seat in the right process with the right product, and productivity goes up 64%.
Yeah, I was reading in your book, there was a study about the cost of employee turnover was 200% of their salary.
Yep.
So
Insane.
we don't think about that. And that includes all, right. It's just the time, the sanity, the training, the frustration. Uh, yeah. So,
It's costly to get it wrong.
yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Gary, last question, and we'll wrap up this podcast. Is you're huge on leadership. You talked about team, empowering your team, hiring team, putting the right people in the right seats, right processes. Just leadership, just in general. You've given presentations on leadership. I've seen you give presentations on leadership and just empowering others. And, one of my values is very similar to your own purpose of just lifting up others. I love raising up leaders. I love seeing someone be a leader on our team or captain on our team, taking ownership, me letting go, watching them shine, let them present, and I don't have to be the face. I love when that happens. Can you talk to us about just leading and empowering others, empowering your team? So let's say you have a good team, you have some people in the right seats, some good processes, and then to lead them, to inspire them, to have them take their own ownership, own leadership. Can you
Yeah.
give some feedback on that?
Well, first you have to start with you. We have no right to lead other people until we've led ourselves first. I'm going to be doing a presentation at WealthCon on the jigsaw puzzles of life and starting with the end in mind. And I think that's where you have to start is like, why am I doing this? What's my purpose? Like, why do I want to have this company? What am I trying to drive at? And then categorizing those pieces of your life to make sure you create harmony within them. I don't believe in balance, Brad. I don't subscribe to balance. Everybody talks about balance, but I believe it's harmony, not balance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, how many hours are you working on average a day?
Me?
Yeah.
8, I guess.
How many hours do you spend with your kids?
Uh, Probably like 3.
So is that balance?
Uh, no. Yeah,
Huh.
it's uneven.
It's harmony.
Mm-hmm.
We can't forego not working it out, right?
Right.
We have to take care of our responsibilities. We can't
Right.
put pleasure before responsibility. I have a
Mm-hmm.
very stern belief that you do not forfeit responsibility for pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
It's what it is. No matter what part of life it is,
Mm-hmm.
you take care of your responsibility before pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
100% of the time. So we can't not work, but what we got to figure out is how to get them harmonized together,
Right. Right.
right?
Integrate.
It's like
Yeah.
it's like a song, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's the bass, there's the tenor, like they're not all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And individually they sound fine, but if they don't harmonize together, it's not a good sounding song,
Right. And then
right?
there might be different seasons, and I need to plan for that, plan ahead for that, prepare for that. Like it's summers, I need to prepare. Okay, do I want that to be the same, or do I want to shift things up during this season of life too? So
So that's harmony,
yeah.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the song goes up and down in
Mm-hmm.
tune, and that's harmony. That's how we get it to flow together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. I think first of all is first of all lead yourself, create harmony in your life, and create that. Second of all is then like how do we lead people? And I always tell people there's 4 things to creating the right leader. I don't subscribe to leadership as much as I subscribe to encouragers. I think we have to be an encourager of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they feel like Jesus Christ was the best example of this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's stewardship is when we become encouragers. And there's 4 things that make up a good leader. Number 1 is they challenge the status quo. That's in our curriculum. We talk about it. Your job is a challenge. Brett, Jesus Christ flipped money changer tables.
Mm-hmm.
He said, the one without sin casts the first stone. He challenged it,
Yeah.
right? Number 2, inspire. People find a leader with a purpose and then attach to that purpose, not the leader. So we have to inspire because they get inspired. That's why the Bible says there was no vision, the people perish. There's no hope. There's no inspiration.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? And so we need to inspire people to want to follow us. Number 3 is we have to empower people. We have to let go. We have to let people make mistakes. We have to let them fail forward. I said it the other day on a post. We have never learned in the moments of success. We've only learned in failure.
Amen.
Failure is a great learning opportunity. It's a great teacher. So fail forward. And you're robbing your employees of the opportunity to learn when you don't let them fail. If all you do is protect them and keep them in success of a process or a product or the position, they're not going to get better. You know, in the book Multipliers, it talks about the banyan tree. That's when you become a banyan tree on people, because then you control the outcome and you don't let them learn. You don't let them fail forward.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think about when I wrote this, I thought about Jesus. You know, Jesus knew that his disciples were going to turn their backs on him. Judas
Mm-hmm.
Iscariot was going to turn him in. He knew it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't know about you. I don't sure that I could have empowered him to do that,
Right. Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
he did.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, he did. Right? He said, I know this is going to happen, but I'm going to empower you to do it either way. And then last, number four, is that we have to model the behavior. Leadership's not do as I say and not as I do. It's be the example of what to do. Right?
That's like,
We earn the right to lead by being the example of what leadership should be. And so when we do those four things, we become an encourager of others. And we rise by lifting them. We don't step on dead bodies to rise. Right? And that's
mm-hmm.
where I want to be in life. I want to be lifted up with others, not stepping on the bodies I piled up to get there.
Right. Yeah.
I want to lead people to their purpose. I want to see people achieve their life's purpose in conjunction with us achieving ours. I don't want to forfeit mine either. I don't think you should. I don't think a
Yeah.
leader should sacrifice their purpose
Mm-hmm.
for the sake of others. I think they should help other people get to their purpose while achieving their own. And I'll say this, a great leader doesn't spend life so busy pursuing their purpose, they never fulfill it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Interesting.
it's
That's
so
it.
important that we don't just get so busy in this life going after our own personal purpose that we never fulfill it. And we use it as an excuse to why we're busy.
Right. So what do you think, setting the high goals, the big hairy goals, shoot for the moon. I set my goals. What's the saying goes? And I've heard it time and time again. I set my goals so high that I'll never achieve it
Yeah.
because it keeps me.
Stretched.
Yeah. What do you say to that?
I don't believe in BHAG goals. I believe in what we call the key purpose indicator. And it should be a stretch goal. It should be something that's uncomfortable, but it shouldn't be something that causes you to neglect your other responsibilities. One thing about goals is the same thing with relationships. Proper relationships support other proper relationships. And so your relationship with your purpose should support your other relationships in your life.
I like that.
Right. And here's the thing I used to tell my son all the time, Jacob, if your relationships with your friends do not support the other proper relationships in your life, they're not good relationships. If the relationships you have don't say, if they're talking bad about mom and dad and bad about the pastor and bad about the teacher, they're not, those are proper relationships. And the relationship you have with the person that's talking bad about them is not a proper relationship. And so you have to look at goals the same way. Is it supporting the other goals or other relationships of your life? Because if it's not proper.
Mm.
Doesn't
Yeah.
mean it can't stretch you.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean it can't push you. It can't motivate you. It can do all those things. But put it around the guardrails of the other parts of your life and ask the question, does it support those things?
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't, then you're chasing a purpose that you'll never fulfill. Because again, we start with as a leader with looking at that jigsaw puzzle complete. When I go to the store and buy a puzzle, I'm looking at going, which puzzle do I want? Why? Because there's a picture on the front.
Right. Right.
And then I choose the puzzle based on that picture. And then I take it out and I start making sure that each piece is important. Because when I get to the end, and if I say I did fulfill it, and I left out this four pieces of life, my kids, my health,
Mm-hmm.
then my puzzle is going to be incomplete.
Yeah.
And you can sit there and go, man, well, I hit 5 million. That's what I wanted to do. But then you look at it, I don't know how many times I've seen it. Their kids aren't there. Their health isn't there. Their mental clarity and sanity is not there. Their
Mm-hmm.
walk with God's not there. Right. And so it's like, but they got the money.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not be so busy in life trying to chase our purpose, we never fulfill it.
Yeah. And I think just having that framework, I think it's important. Just looking at the end in mind, like you said, looking at the puzzle. Where do you want to go? What is your purpose? And once you can figure that out, many times you have to remove things from your life. I mean, I've actually been in that process now. Like, what do I need to remove? Because I have too much. I have too many pieces in my puzzle, like stuff that doesn't even belong in the puzzle. But once you get to clarity, then you can start saying, I got to remove these, and all these are good. They're good things, but you have to remove things. So.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that the BHAG goal is not a good thing. It doesn't mean that it doesn't change people's lives. It doesn't mean that it doesn't do all these wonderful things that you're intended for do, but at the expense of what? I don't know about you, but I don't want collateral damage when I look back at life.
Mm-hmm. For sure. That's awesome. Well, thanks, Gary. Awesome wisdom, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast with Gary Harper. Make sure you get the book Rise, and you have other books too, Gary. Can you kind of just go through your books? The Rise Business Framework. You have another Rise that's more of a fable.
Yep.
Is your business sick? Go through those.
Those Rise Business Framework is a tactical teacher's guide to how to implement the Rise Business Framework in your business. And it's built that way. You can read chapter by chapter. You don't have to read the book cover to cover. Second book is called A Purpose to Rise, and it talks about a real estate entrepreneur leaving corporate America and hiring a Rise business coach and going through the 5 phases of business and reaching his purpose. Mm-hmm. The other book I have is called Thriving Through Hard Times, and it's an ebook that can be sent, and that book talks to us about how to navigate hard times of life, whatever season we're in. There's also the Master of Time. The Master of Time is an ebook as well, where we talk about how to time manage properly. And then the other book that's kind of near and dear to my heart, it's on Amazon, and it's called Is Your Business Sick? This book was written out of the mindset of having parasites in your business. And it ties back in my life story of how I got Lyme disease, which is a parasite, and how it almost killed me in 2011. And so and I think that's one on your previous podcast, we talked about that journey of life, from my part of my life. But that book, Is Your Business Sick, kind of talks about how I discovered this parasite in my life that almost killed me, then how I started to see parasites in business that make a business sick as well. And so those are the different books I have. The two most recent one, and the one that's actually been just taking off, the Rise Business Framework, has become a bestseller. Brett, we're going to be speaking at MIT next month on it. Went out, met Patrick Lencioni because of it. You know, we were on ABC News or NBC News in Tampa. We just had a great run of it already. Almost 1,000 copies sold in the last little 120 days.
Awesome.
So it's been fun, and I'm blessed to be able to help as many people as this book's been able to help.
That's awesome. Well, make sure you guys pick up a copy of one of those books. You know, the Business Framework is one that I've gotten a hold of, and then the other one, the Fable, is just Rise, right?
A Purpose to Rise.
Purpose to Rise. But we're going to put that in our show notes anyways, and our YouTube channel. And this is a wrap. Make sure you guys get those copies. And thanks so much for being on the podcast, Gary. Appreciate you, buddy.
I appreciate you too.